Look, to this day, I wonder what went through my head that night. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the way he looked at me, kind of corner, with that naughty smile. The truth is that it all started at a super innocent family dinner. Everyone was there. My sister, my brother, in-law, nephews. After most were gone, it was just me and him in the room. My nephew, with that eye-of-eye challenge, proposed a game of truth or challenge. I, a little animated by the wine and the atmosphere of the night, accepted without thinking much. That's when he let out the phrase that doesn't leave my head. "I doubt you would have the courage to kiss me here now." I confess, at the time, my heart shot. He was always beautiful, younger of course, but I never imagined seeing him like that. What happened next was a game of provocations that came out completely from control. And that's what I'm going to tell you here today. But before you continue, what would you do in this situation? Comment down here and already subscribe to the channel so as not to lose the unfolding of this story. Because look, it's just starting. The night had started in a very innocent way. My sister prepared a delicious dinner, and everyone was excited, talking loudly and laughing a lot. I confess that I had already had 2 glasses of wine when I realized that my nephew did not take my eyes out of me. I found it funny at first, but that exchange of looks was getting more and more loaded with second intentions. After the dessert, the staff began to disperse. My sister went to put the kids to sleep, and my brother, in-law, climbed to the room. We are just both of us in the room. The mood was different, loaded with a silence that said more than any word. It was then that he, with that sassy look, challenged me. He said the night was just beginning, and proposed a little game to cheer up. Truth or challenge. I laughed and accepted. I couldn't imagine where it would give. He started with innocent questions, but soon the game got bolder. With each round, he was closer, the lowest voice, the most intense look, until he launched the phrase that turned my world upside down. "Would you have the courage to kiss me here now?" When he proposed the game, I thought it was just a joke. I already had a hot face because of the wine and the situation, but his look left no doubt. He wanted to tease me. I accepted. After all, what barely there could be in a silly game? We sat on the living room rug, facing each other, with the bottle of wine between us. The first round was quiet, simple questions. What is your favorite movie? What is your biggest dream? But soon it changed tone. He started asking about my relationships, my experiences. Every answer of mine was received with a malicious smile. I felt my whole body reacting. The heat climbed through my skin. The tension in the air was almost palpable. In the third round, he looked in my eyes and said with a hoarse voice, "Now it's a challenge. I want to see if you really have the courage." My heart accelerated. I knew I was going into a dangerous game, but I couldn't retreat. I bit my lip and answered, "He sends." It was at this moment that he made the bet that would change everything that night. When he launched that challenge, I felt my whole body shiver. "Would you have the courage to kiss me here now?" The phrase was echoing in my head. My first reaction was to give a nervous laugh, but he didn't look firm, waiting for my answer. That boy wasn't kidding. And the more I tried to rationalize, the more my skin burned with desire. I decided to play his game. I approached a little more and said, "I don't know if you're ready for it." The provocation was accurate. I saw a glow of excitement in his eyes. Then he went further. He said I would never have the courage to kiss someone younger, that I was all right. It took me in pride. Barely he knew that inside I was boiling. Desire to show that he was wrong. Every second, the weather got denser. He approached mine, almost brushing my nose. My breath accelerated. I only had one question in my head. How far would I go with that? But when I saw, my hands had already leaned on his thighs, and that's when I knew I didn't have a return anymore. The wine already had its effect on my body. I felt my warm cheeks and lightly light. But what really made me dizzy was the way he looked at me. Every second, the air seemed denser, loaded with a tension that made my chest vibrate. I knew it was no longer an innocent game. My body reacted without me being able to control. My legs were restless. My hands sweated. He noticed this and took advantage. It approached even closer, the voice in a hoarse whisper. "Are you afraid of me, Aunt?" That was like a snap. I looked into his eyes and saw that he knew exactly what he was doing. It was no longer my usual behaved nephew. At that moment, he was a man blatantly challenging me. I needed to resume control. I leaned my body, approached my mouth to his ear, and said, "Fear is not quite the word. The feeling is different. much more dangerous. He smiled in the corner. His breath accelerated. The space between us has practically disappeared, and at that moment, I knew we were on a path without a return. My heart seemed to want to get out of the chest. A few inches from him, he felt the warmth his body emanating. The fixed eyes on mine, the mouth ajar. The air around us was electrified. Then he said in a firmer tone, "If you are not afraid, prove." It was the missing push. My mind screamed for me to stop, but my body no longer obeyed. The desire spoke louder. I leaned one hand on his shoulder, and with the other I held his face. Our looks crossed for a moment, as if both knew that it would change everything. And that's when I approached, gluing my lips to his. The first touch was soft, almost a peck, but loaded with an absurd tension. When I felt his lips respond, I lost any remnants of control. My mouth opened a little more, seeking more contact, more heat. He corresponded with a hunger that shivered me whole. His hands held my waist firmly, pulling me closer. The kiss, which should have been a silly challenge, was now a game of wills. There, in the middle of the room, all that existed was the desire that exploded between us. What should have been just a peck became an explosion of desire. The kiss was increasingly intense. Our mouths moved with a hunger that I didn't imagine feeling for him. My body reacted every touch, every sigh. His hands strolled down my back, daring down with boldness. My skin shiver all over. I no longer thought about anything but the feeling of having it so glued to me. When I realized, we were almost lying on the living room rug, my body pressured against his, our hips fitting with a desire that left no doubt. He interrupted the kiss for a second, panting, and said, "This is getting dangerous." I smiled and answered, "You who started this game." The provocation rekindled the fire between us. His hands tightened my thighs, pulling me even closer. My fingers tangled into his hair, guiding each movement. Each new touch was an invitation to exceed the limits. I knew I shouldn't, but it was already too delivered to back down. From that moment on, the game had stopped being a joke. Now it was a duel of wills that no one there wanted to lose. I don't know how, but in the heat of that moment, we moved to the window. The long, heavy curtains gave us a false sense of privacy. It was exciting, almost prohibited. I leaned my back on the wall. He came along, gluing his body to mine. My hands were already intertwined in his, which now held them firmly above my head. I was stuck, surrendered, and it only increased the desire that consumed me. He kissed me with an intensity that made me lose my air, his mouth down my neck, nibbling and pulling moans that I was trying to drown out. With each new provocation, my skin burned even more. When he whispered in my ear who loved to see me like this, completely delivered, a shiver ran through my whole body. I tried to let go, just to feel your hands tighten my wrists harder. "Not so fast, Aunt." That phrase took me the rest of control I still had. I was no longer owned by me. I wanted more, much more, and he knew that. The game that had begun with a simple challenge now was an explosion of contained desire, about to overflow. The kisses became increasingly intense. Every bolder touch, I could no longer contain the moans that escaped from my mouth. With each movement, he explored me more confidently, as if he knew exactly where and how to touch me. My body was on fire, my breath completely unzipped. I tried to drown out the sounds, biting my lips, but it was impossible. Each new contact made a sound escape, treacherous and increasingly loud. He looked at me with a malicious smile. "You'll wake up the whole house that way." I tried to answer, but he shut my mouth with a deep and hungry kiss. When I thought nothing else could stop us, we heard firm knocks on the door. It was my sister with an impatient voice. "Is everything okay there?" We freeze at the same moment. The heart fired, the body still glued to his. He whispered in my ear, "Get quiet." I held my breath, trying to control the moans that still insisted on leaving. The beats were repeated. I almost lost my balance, but he held me firmly. After a few seconds of silence, we heard steps away. My body trembled, but it was not in fear. It was pure desire, still at the flower of the skin. When my sister's footsteps walked away, we stayed there, still panting. His body glued to mine, the heat between us almost unbearable. Our looks met, loaded with a mixture of desire and adrenaline. He let out my hands slowly, as if still reluctant to make me free. My whole body trembled. I couldn't say a word. I could only feel how much I still wanted him. He ran his fingers down my face, with the affection that contrasted with the intensity of moments ago. whispered, "I think we should stop for now." I agreed with a nod, but my eyes said otherwise. We were on the edge. Any extra movement and there would be no more return. We tidy up our clothes quickly, trying to recover some normal appearance. The heart was still unzipped, the lips still throbbing the kiss. When I left the room, my sister gave me a curious look. I just smiled and climbed to the room. Inside, alone, I leaned against the door, closed my eyes, and let a sigh escape. That night had changed something inside me, and deep down, I knew it wouldn't be the last time that would happen. The next day, I woke up with my head spinning. It was not just the effect of wine, it was the weight of what had happened. Every detail of the night before returned to my mind, like a movie. During breakfast, I avoided looking directly at him, but it was impossible to ignore the looks we changed. There was something different, a silent tension hanging in the air. In the following days, this tension only increased. Each casual meeting at my sister's house was loaded with meanings. A touch on the arm, a long look, a smile of corner. Everything seemed loaded with second intentions. He, in turn, seemed to have fun with the situation. I always found an excuse to approach, to tease me, and I, even trying to keep my posture, felt my body react more and more. Our relationship was never the same. Behind each conversation, there was a silent game of contained desire. I knew he hadn't forgotten that night, just as I couldn't get it out of my head. The most dangerous thing was that with each passing day, the desire to repeat that experience only grew inside me. Over the days, I began to reflect on everything that happened that night. It was exciting, unexpected, and took me completely out of my comfort zone. I realized that for a long time, I had put myself in a box. Mature, responsible woman who is not allowed for certain desires. But that night showed me that I am much more than that. I have wills, fantasies, and it's okay to feel and live it. Another important lesson was to understand how dangerous desire can be when mixed with family situations. The line between allowed and forbidden is very thin, and it is easy to get carried away when adrenaline and desire take over. I also realized how important it is to know my own limits. That night, I came very close to crossing a line that might regret it. It was a reminder that even in times of delivery, you need to maintain some control. Finally, I learned that sometimes living the moment is necessary. I don't regret what happened. On the contrary, it was an experience that made me rediscover one side of mine that was dormant, and who knows what the future still reserves us. Today, when I remember that night, a naughty smile always escapes my lips. It was a situation that started as a simple joke, and eventually revealed wishes that I didn't even know I had. The relationship with my nephew never returned to what it was before. There is a secret between us, a silent tension that hangs on each meeting. None of us talks about it, but we both know it is there, latent. I learned a lot about myself from this experience. I found that I can allow myself to feel, wish, and explore my sides that were hidden, and that sometimes moments of delivery are exactly what we need to rediscover. If I would do it all over again, perhaps, but with a little more caution. Some lines are too dangerous to cross without thinking. Now I want to know about you. What would you do in such a situation? Would you have the courage to accept such a challenge? Tell me here in the comments. I will love to know. And of course, if you enjoyed this story, already leave your like in the video and subscribe to the channel. Come with me, because there is still a lot of hot history to share.